It's time for Windows Weekly 131 with Paul Thurrott. He's at PDC, the Professional Developers Conference in Los Angeles, and has the latest from Microsoft. Windows Weekly is coming up next.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for Windows Weekly is provided by CacheFly at CACHEFLY.com. This is Windows Weekly with Paul Thurrott, episode 131 for November 20th, 2009. PDC 2009. Windows Weekly is brought to you by the new voice-activated sync featuring hands-free calling, music search, and turn-by-turn navigation. Available exclusively on Ford, Lincoln, and Mercury vehicles. For more details and to enter to win a free Nano or Zune, visit syncmyridepodcast.com. And by Audible.com. To download a free audiobook of your choice, visit audible.com/windows and follow Audible on Twitter at audible_com. And by GoToMeeting. Business travel can kill your company's profits, so do more, save more, and travel less with GoToMeeting. For your free 30-day trial, visit gotomeeting.com/windowsweekly.
So this URL,
I see you URL from the Microsoft Kitchen.
All right, so scroll down to the picture of me with three other guys.
Okay. Oh dear. Hold on a second. Let me just.
we had the greatest practical joke of all time today.
All right, we are here in the Microsoft Kitchen. This is PDC. Here you are with your new Windows 7 computers. Is that the picture?
Well, no, actually, so we don't actually have the computers. So they gave laptops out to everyone who attended PDC.
Isn't that nice? Wow.
Now, except for the press. So
no, because you're not allowed to accept those.
Right. So, which is fine. You know, they have these really nice Windows 7 laptops. They're tablets. They have multi-touch and all that stuff. Microsoft especially created them with Acer. They're not something.
So they're not even going to sell these? These are just like...
No, they sell something like it, I guess, overseas. These are custom machines.
It says they're the PDC 09 laptop.
Yeah. But the thing is, you know, if you think about a typical press room, right, you have people who are, actual press.
Right.
You know, like Jerry Purnell was in there, for example.
Oh, yeah.
He's guys who have been around forever.
Love Jerry.
Guys like, Ed Bott, myself, Mary Jo Foley, any bloggers, people are sort of the newer generation of, younger guys typically.
Kids today.
But then you have the subculture beyond that, and there are these people who you kind of look at and you wonder what they're doing here, and you don't understand how they get in because
that's the real thing. It's how they get in.
They don't contribute at all to the conversation.
No, they're filing to their live journal.
Yeah, so they're really there for the free things.
Free food, yeah.
So when this thing was announced, I should say before the show, a friend of mine from Microsoft said, "Hey, by the way, we're going to be giving out laptops to everyone who goes to the show." And I said, "Oh, geez, this is terrible because now this guy's going to get one, and he's going to think that this is going to justify him coming to the show." And
this is why I'm in the media.
This is literally what he's like. So the night before, last night we were at a party, and I ran into Mike Nash, who's a Microsoft executive, and I said, "Hey, a guy from the Boston area. I've known him for a long time." And I said, "Hey, I heard you guys were giving out computers. I assume they're netbooks. I mean, Acer machines or something." And he says, "No, I don't know what you're talking about." I said, "Well, that's what I heard from someone." And he said, "Nope, I don't know anything about that." And I thought, well, that's kind of weird, And as the keynote progressed today, it became
liar. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, they were in fact giving out the
liar. Okay,
they're not netbooks, So
that's what he was saying. He wasn't lying. He was.
The guy actually he text messaged me as this was being communicated and said, "Hey, I'm right behind you. Sorry, I had to lie to you." So anyway, this kid, this younger guy, of course, ran down and tried to get one, even though we were expressly told that
I'm press.
Yeah, that the press could not have the laptop. So he's trying to sneak his way into getting one, and he spent much of his day doing this. So later in the day, Raphael and the other people you see there in the picture, Andrew from NeoWin and Stephen Chapman, who hosts the website you're looking at, we were walking around the show floor, and these people had left their boxes out. And I said, "You know what we got to do?" I said, "We got to grab the boxes.
We all got one.
Bring them back to the press room, and just walk in like it's the most normal thing in the world. Sit down and go to work and see what happens." So we do this. And he jumps out of his seat, and he ran down the hall as fast as he could. But what made this beautiful, what made this so priceless, was we got a round of applause from all 50 of the people. It was the most unbelievable. It was just awesome.
Oh, that's great.
It was awesome. I mean, this place just broke out into applause because everyone knows what this guy's like, and it's everyone's a little bit unclear on even what he's doing there.
Oh,
so it was it was a fine moment.
That's really great. Fun and games at PDC, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. Paul Thurrott.
It was cruel, but absolutely worth it. So,
I'll tell you, what a way to begin Windows Weekly. Are you still in the where is it? Los Angeles?
Yeah.
You're still there.
Yeah, I've been working on ever lessening amounts of sleep each night. I think I went from 7 to 6 to 5 hours last night, but I fly home tomorrow, which is why we're recording today, right? Because I'll be traveling tomorrow.
Right. So PDC is not held every year, although we've had PDCs the last couple of years in a row.
Yeah, this is the second one in a row.
Because normally it's done when there's a new version of Windows coming out. It's the developers conference.
Yeah. So it's possible they'll do this every year. I'm kind of hoping that the tone of this show dissuades some people from showing up in the future, because it is it's a developer show, and right. If you sat through the keynote on day one, which is very cloud heavy and server stuff and incredibly dense, not interesting in sort of a general technology sense, you would have glazed over. Anyone would have. I mean, I did. I think I was actually nodding off. It was unbelievable. I mean, it is what it is. I mean, that's the point of the show. It's
for developers. Show.
Yeah. Now, the second day of the show today, they reserved for some of the client stuff, and there was actually some really interesting stuff, and I think we should talk about some of that stuff today. Much more interesting, just from a general technology sense, right? So Windows 7, Office, some web stuff, a new version of Internet Explorer coming down the pike and all that. So, it's funny, the day, and I really, honestly, last year's PDC kind of followed the same trajectory. There was one day where it was, actually 2 days, where it was very cloud heavy. They introduced Windows Azure last year. Nobody knew what it was. Nobody knew what it meant. It was very confusing.
Nobody knew how to pronounce it.
Exactly. Actually, we're still unclear on that. And, and then there was Windows 7, which, of course, was very interesting.
Right.
So we have this kind of dichotomy, I guess, or whatever. But we did live blogging, some of those guys in the photo, and some other people.
So I could go to Microsoft Kitchen. Is that the site?
Well, that's one of the guys. That's Stephen Chapman's site.
Okay.
I have the live blogs and stuff are up on my site. They're all, Raphael's site, Long Zheng's site. They're up on NeoWin. Mary Jo Foley linked to it and was part of it, and as was Ed Bott. So
you guys are becoming a little Windows Mafia.
Yeah,
it's kind of cool. I mean, it's really interesting. I mean, of course, a lot of people. There's probably hundreds of people covering Windows on a variety of platforms, but you're kind of the guys now.
It seems like it.
Yeah, I like that. I really like that. Yeah, Raphael, Mary Jo, Ed Bott.
And that's really why, for a lot of the reason I come to the show, you can cover a show like this remotely if you think about it. I mean,
oh yeah.
Sometimes you wanted to show up just to see people again in person and hang out with them a little bit. And, I think good things happen, like including today's shenanigans. Which was sort of the result of the end of a long week of, putting up with baloney and finally seizing the moment and having some fun with it.
Well, it takes some of the sting out of not being able to play Modern Warfare 2 for a few days.
Listen to me.
That's the sting.
This is cold turkey.
I don't know how okay, I played it last night.
I almost bought the PC version to play on my laptop.
On the laptop. Steam, baby. I got it for Henry, along with Assassin's Creed 2, because he really liked the Assassin's Creed. Mm-hmm. And for me, Dragon Age, because I love being a sorcerer.
Love the dragons.
Love the dragons. But he fired up MW2.
Yep.
And I kind of now know what you're talking about. It was a little hairy.
It's intense, right?
So you're in a firefight, and it's right.
Did you get the PC version or the
Xbox?
Okay, so easily the best graphics ever on an Xbox.
Beautiful,
right?
Beautiful.
If we could recap last week's show, but in perhaps just 40 minutes, it's an amazing game. It is one of the most intense games I've ever played. The single player stuff is
instantly intense. Instantly, you're in.
Multiplayer stuff is.
And then you get in the Jeep. This is the scene. The scene I saw. So you're shooting, crazy. Then you get in the Jeep, and now you've got a nice heavy gun, but you can't shoot anything unless it shoots at you first. So it's extremely tense. You've gone from this crazy firefight to now this extremely tense going down these alleys.
Yeah. So, did you see the airport sequence?
I didn't get there yet.
Okay, so I don't want to. Well, there's a significant plot hole in this game, and it involves the airport sequence.
I don't know if I'm going to get there. You might as well tell me.
Doesn't matter. I finished the game.
You finished it
after the podcast last week, and then I've been I played multiplayer.
You're a madman.
This week I'll go back. I'll do it again. I got to do it on veteran. I just wanted to play it on normal to do it.
Just to experience it, sure. Oh, that sounds like. I have to say, it is. Everything you said, it's spectacular.
I'll be 9 months from now. That's the game I'm going to be playing.
It's really fun.
I already know this.
It's everything a boy likes. You know, you got a gun. You're going.
Yeah, it's getting pretty close. Yeah,
it's that kind of thing. Only it's hyper realistic. You missed.
Sure.
We were talking on This Weekend. What do you? Kiki's looking at me, kind of funny.
No, I was just
she's
thinking,
like slinking out the door. What did I get myself into here?
No, some girls like this, but it's kind of it's the prototypical boy thing, where they like to blow stuff up.
Yeah,
it's kind of that thing.
I like blowing things up though too.
But you like real things to blow up.
Yeah, that's true.
She likes blowing up actual explosives.
That's
no, but
right.
this is pretty darn expensive.
I'm too chicken for that. I just want to blow up things on camera.
Yeah. Somebody asked me, it was funny, Edbot's co-author Carl Secret asked me, you live in Massachusetts, this is like a liberal state. You obviously are not a gun owner or a gun guy. I mean, how is it that you enjoy this kind of game?
No.
And
we
I'm
support,
I don't really, I never thought of it like that, but...
we support the right to bear synthetic weapons.
Virtual arms.
Virtual arms. Yep.
Listen, somebody has to take down the Nazi zombies. I'm just saying.
There is, by the way, an iPhone version of Call of Duty.
I know I have this.
Zombies.
It's not bad.
Zombies.
What amazes me, by the way, you can say what you want about Apple, iPhone, whatever. The graphics on that game are fantastic.
It's pretty amazing, yeah.
They are the console version of the graphics. I mean, they might be detuned a bit. Obviously the resolution is much lower, but the quality of the graphics, the look and feel of the whole thing.
But you're playing it on your phone.
Console.
You're playing it on your phone. Now, I pray that Android, gets some of these games, because that's really what's missing right now from phones like the Droid, which it's a Cortex A8, it has the same processor powers as 3GS, has same graphics capabilities. If they just write the software for it,
right?
That's what's missing. Hey, before we go, more coverage of the PDC, more Modern Warfare 2 talk.
Okay.
There's lots to talk about, but I do want to mention one of our sponsors here, and of course, you know what it is. Ford Sync. I bet you all those Microsoft guys are driving Ford, Lincoln, or Mercury vehicles.
A lot of them do. Steve Ballmer drives a Ford vehicle of some kind. I don't remember if it's a Mercury or...
If he's got any... Well, he's probably driving like a Lincoln.
You would think so, but I don't know that that's the case. I could be wrong, but he
should be driving. If he were me, he'd be driving a fine Mustang automobile.
Yeah, you need to have hair that's going to wave in the wind. To drive a convertible. like you. That's what I meant.
My ears flap.
Sure.
That's, of course, as I'm sticking my head out the window. I shouldn't probably
like a dog. Your tongue You're driving a car. You got to pay attention.
As much as I love the V8 and the muscle and all of that, the Ford Sync, it's kind of great because it's a muscle car, but I have this Ford Sync in there. So, I mean, the sound sounds so good, and it's so easy to use. And you never take your eye off the road. You never take your hands off the wheel, because Sync, it's like, I liken it to Kit in Knight Rider, because you talk to your car. Sure. So you say, Sync, read me the New York Times front page, or call Paul Thurrott, or listen to Windows Weekly. I mean, it knows what's on your device, whether it's a Zune or an iPhone or a Droid or even a USB key you could plug in. It'll index it and it'll play whatever's on there. You could put, if you really wanted a lot of music, put a terabyte USB drive in there, and you got all the music you could ever listen to, and it's got.
I love Ford Sync. I love it.
Have you used it?
Yeah, I had it in a rental car when I went to Denver in, I don't know, probably end of August or so.
There's a good way. There's a good way to try it. Get a rental car. Yeah. I didn't even think of that.
Well, it's funny because I had an hour drive from the airport, and I saw the Ford Sync thing, and I had sort of a vague idea of what it was. And I'm driving along, and there's a USB port in it. There's a line out port, or I guess a line in port. And I thought, well, it's interesting. I have Zunes and iPods and things. I wonder if I could connect these. And I sort of tried that. And then the second day I said, this thing does phone stuff. I wonder, if I could connect the iPhone to it. It does the sync, and my contacts are in there.
All your contacts are in there. Yep.
Oh, it's fantastic.
Gives you turn-by-turn directions. It's a GPS as well, even without that screen. I mean, it knows the traffic.
You talk to it. It talks to you. It's wonderful.
A nice lady, too, the sync lady. I want to
Sure.
meet her someday. She seems like a person you'd like to know.
You know who needs to do the voice is that woman from the Star Trek the Star Trek Borg movie, whichever one that was.
Jerry? 8 of
no,
9?
No,
7
the
of
villain,
13?
the villainous Borg queen.
I don't
not
know
sure
if I
what
want
the
a
actress
villainous
is.
Borg queen talking to me.
She has an awesome voice.
Turn left, Leo, or I'll
Yeah,
rip
exactly.
your heart out. One of us.
Plus, you don't want to mess with her because she's the Borg queen, you know.
I think you should turn now, Leo. It's so much fun. Anyway, I want you to try. Here's a couple of things I want to let you know. First of all, go to syncmyridepodcast.com. Syncmyridepodcast.com. You could take a look at the sync. There's information there to link you back to the sync website. That's how you control sync. That's where you get your vehicle information reports and so forth. But you can also tweet to win, and they explain that there at syncmyridepodcast.com. Just send out a tweet. Say, I'm listening to Paul live from PDC, and by the way, pound Sync My Ride Podcast. You'll be entered to win one of 15 Xanos or Noons. I mean Nanos or Zunes. They're giving away.
Wow.
Did that fool you for a minute? The Xano? Or the Noon? They're giving away 15 between now and December 8th. The reason I say both, because you get to choose. And the point, of course, is both work great with Sync. In fact, everything works great with Sync. If it's got USB, Sync will do it. Pound Sync My Ride Podcast on Twitter for a chance to win. And don't forget the website, syncmyridepodcast.com. And, you know, if you get a chance to ride in a Ford vehicle, do. Come on over. You know what? Come to the cottage. I'm giving away free rides in my pony car.
Wow.
Yeah, just come on over. I hope you can, if you feel the need for speed.
I do feel the need for speed.
It is so good. I love it. Okay, I'm sorry. And the way you feel about Modern Warfare 2, that's how I feel about my pony car.
I do not fault you for this.
No.
It's pretty good to feel good about your car.
It's fun. Well, and the
Sure.
sync helps.
And the sync helps. Yeah.
I feel good every time my car starts, so I sort of understand what you're saying.
That's a little bit different. Yeah, you've lowered your expectations,
Yeah,
but that's
fine.
fine.
that's what getting old is all about, Leo.
Yes, I know. Please don't
It's
rub
all
it
about
in.
lowered expectations.
What else? So PDC, they were talking about, did they talk about Windows 8? What do they talk about? I mean, the Windows 7 is there. It's here. It's done.
Yeah, so
I know IE9 was
Microsoft,
one
you know,
topic. I mean,
it's interesting with Windows 7 that because of the way they did a 360 in many ways, and they changed the way they developed Windows with this version. You know, they had to sort of get the system in place for this version. They set a very specific schedule. You know, what can we do in 3 years? You know, and Windows 7 was the result. The side effects of this are enormous all across the company. You know, and I'm talking to people on campus officially and unofficially. I was told again and again and again that, you know, Windows 7's success means that for teams working on other products, they're going to have to work like that, you know, and it means such things as not promising you're going to do anything until you're positive that you can do it, setting a specific schedule, being realistic about the schedule, actually meeting, you know, the claims that you make.
how
and all that.
innovative. Amazing.
Yeah, it sounds. Well, you know, with Vista, they went for the, you know, the pie in the sky and the golden ring and all that, and obviously that didn't really work out. So, you know, Windows 7 is a different way of doing things, but it was so successful that, you know, they're doing it again. So I think we can look forward to regular Windows releases on a set schedule going forward, and you can kind of forget about that major release, minor release baloney. It's just going to be, you know, the next Windows release. So there's that. But of course, you know, Microsoft doesn't want to talk about that at PDC. So what they talked about was more along the lines of, you know, this is the same message we had last year. Here's Windows 7. As you may have noticed, it has not changed since last year, but now it's shipping. You know, here are the opportunities that are available for developers, you know, around things like the ribbon and the various capabilities in Windows 7 and so forth. And, you know, they had a lot of interesting numbers, you know, that you might recall a few weeks back. I think we talked about the fact that, you know, officially 8 million people, you know, beta tested the operating system, but unofficially there were another 7 million. This is by far the most people that have ever beta tested any software product. But they had other numbers, you know, 1.7 million people clicked on the send feedback links in the operating system. You know, they recorded the installation of over 91,000 unique hardware devices, you know, connected to Windows 7 PCs, 14,000 of which were unique printers, you know.
You know, I didn't even know there were 14,000
I know, it's
different
crazy.
printers in the world.
Yeah.
It's amazing the numbers that Microsoft can command.
Yeah. So there were a lot of big numbers, you know, things like that. You know, Windows 7 is what it is. They didn't change the compatibility model. Maybe next time they will. I mean, they didn't say that, but over the next 3 years, they need to build off of the goodwill that they have now with Windows 7 and make sure they don't screw it up. And they want to do the same thing again. So I'm sure that they will. They showed off a very, very early version of IE9 and Internet Explorer 9, that is. And this was kind of interesting because, I think there have been some calls around the internet here and there, in the blogosphere especially. Maybe Microsoft should stop making Internet Explorer. Maybe they should use someone else's rendering engine, that kind of thing. I mean, I think people forget the fact that IE is still, in fact, extremely dominant from a usage and market share perspective. But they're forging ahead. They're using the same, they're using their own rendering engine. But they've made some specific advances around hardware acceleration, using the GPU, which will speed up the rendering engine and provide for better looking graphics and text just by smoothing things out and providing for, better animations and so forth. It's funny. I was talking to one of the guys from the IE team today, and he was saying, he goes on to Twitter and everyone's talking about how this GPU accessibility means we're going to be able to play games in the browser and do things like that. And that's not that's not what this is about. It's really just about performance, about the quality of the display and so forth. So they don't show off the browser. The browser window that you see during the demos is the frame of the window with no controls. So in March, Microsoft has a web developer show called Mix, and I think at that time they'll probably release a beta. Certainly we'll have more information then, and you'll be able to see maybe a UI for this product, and we'll see how and if they change it. But for right now, it was a very early release, and I think what they wanted to do was just say, hey, look, we're working on it. We're going to move quickly on this. And web standards obviously is a big part of the picture. They want to adhere to HTML5. They want to pass the acid test and all that stuff.
They did, right? Or they came close?
No, they didn't. But their plan is to be there.
32 out of 100. Yeah, I'm looking at it.
Yeah, the test that they're doing right now, the rendering engine they're using in IE9 is essentially the IE8 rendering engine.
Oh,
it's
okay.
just backed by this more fluid GPU-based subsystem. So it's faster. And
it's interesting. There was very positive reaction to IE9 though on the net when people heard the details coming out of PDC.
Yeah,
I was reading a lot of articles. People are just kind of saying, "Wow, this is great." Microsoft is finally paying attention to standards.
Finally, yeah, sure.
And they're speeding this thing up. You saw the graph of IE8.
Yeah. And I saw it today in person, and it's it's nice.
Big improvement.
It's early yet, though. It's not even a product. So, I mean, it's too early to get too excited about it. But
and they've made these, let's be honest, claims before.
Speed claims.
This is standards claims. They do this every time.
I say this every time a new product comes out. It's faster, smaller, better than it was before. Right. That's the baseline. It's a new version. We expect that. That's what it should be. That's the starting point. That's not a benefit of this thing. That's the that's the fundamentals.
Right.
So IE8, I don't know. I have my misgivings about performance on that one. It seems like IE8 degrades over time.
You're a Firefox user, right?
Yeah. I try. They keep pulling me back.
They keep pulling me in. I would love to use IE8. I would love to use it, and you have to.
I would be happy to use it.
It's there, and you have to use it for some things anyway.
It would be simpler.
Yeah.
I look at Chrome. I look at Safari. I use Firefox essentially, but on different machines, different times. Every time Safari Apple comes out with a new release, I install it. Chrome, same thing. I'm on the beta path with that. I will say, by the way, newer versions, beta versions of Firefox and Chrome, and also the very latest shipping version of Safari, all support Windows 7 features like the ability to have multiple thumbnails on the mouse over hover on the taskbar for tabs, right? Which previously was an IE only feature. So the other browser makers are moving along as well.
That's something they do, not something Microsoft does?
No. Well, in other words, when IE8 first shipped, it was the only browser that offered this feature. But the other browser makers,
I guess it's something they can write in. There's a hook.
Well, they release on their own schedules, right? So I'm not sure this is so big of a deal, but a few someone's pointed out to me that the release of IE9 will occur outside of the release of any version of Windows, and that this is sort of the only time this has ever happened.
Really?
Dating back to
no.
maybe well, that's what I said.
IE8 came out before Windows 7.
It did by a number of months. But
IE
was
7
still
came
considered
out.
part of that development path.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's the one I always
7
point
was
to.
for Vista.
7 was Vista. 6
6 was XP. No, I guess that's right. Yeah.
was 2000. 5 was ME. 4 was IE8. You can go down the list. But they actually didn't always ship neck and neck. I mean, the version of IE that shipped in Windows Me, for example, wasn't the final version that it shipped later.
Right.
And as you pointed out, IE8 shipped a number of months before Windows 7. So, like I said, I don't consider that a huge difference. But what I do consider huge with IE9 is the fact that they're doing this so quickly. I think it's very important that they get out there as quickly as possible. We're not dropping this. We're not done. We know we have work to do. We're going to do it as quickly as possible. And my expectation is, again, following the Windows 7 model, this is speculation on my part, but I think what you're going to see is one beta, one RC, and a final release. And I think the final release will ship exactly a year after Windows 7. So in line with Windows Vista SP1 in October 2010. That's my expectation for that one.
Oh, boy. Windows 7 SP1.
Yep.
And IE9.
Yeah, possibly even as packaged together.
In the fall of next year.
October.
I want to talk, there's other stuff to talk about, including Windows 7 news, as well as a new Silverlight, Office 2010 public beta, and so forth. But before we do that, can I mention my friends at Citrix? They are good friends. I like them. Okay. You might like them too. Citrix, I mean, if you use Windows, you know the name Citrix, of course. They do the remote access stuff. The Citrix server is kind of key to a lot of enterprises. The consumer side of this is Go to My PC, Go to Assist, and Go to Meeting, which is used by a lot of companies, including mine, pretty much daily for meetings. Go to Meeting is really a problem solver for people like me who, for one thing, can't go anywhere because I'm tied to the studio, but also want to save money, time, stress, flying across the country for meetings, even driving across town for meetings, going into San Francisco. I just use Go to Meeting. Go to Meeting is easy to use. It's very simple to run, very simple to install. In fact, I tell you what, I'll make you a little challenge. Go ahead, go right now to gotomeeting.com/Windows Weekly. I've arranged a 30-day free trial, so there's no cost to you to do this. Set up the account. The software downloads and installs in less than a couple of minutes. It's very quick. And now you're set. The next time you have to have a meeting, maybe you're even on the phone and you're saying, gosh, I wish I could show you the PowerPoint, or I wish I could demo this for you. Maybe we could work together on a document. Say, hey, I forgot. I got Go to Meeting installed. Here's what you do. The person's on the phone. You say, okay, here's what I want you to do. Go to gotomeeting.com. Get your browser open. Okay, gotomeeting.com. See that button on the left that says join a meeting? Press that. You give them the meeting ID, and bing, they're seeing your computer on their screen. You can see their computer. They can give you control of theirs. You can show them drawings. Anything you could do on your screen, they'll be able to see. It's in real time. It's very fast. I've used it. I'll tell you how good it is. I've used it to rehearse tandem speeches. When I did a speech where I do half and the other guy does half. We trade off every minute. I do a minute, they do a minute. We were able to do that in real time. Try it free. Go to meeting.com/Windows Weekly. If you like it, it's $49 a month. That includes free voice over the internet, free teleconferencing, and I tell you, just one airplane ticket that'll save you, a lot of money just using Go to Meeting. Go to meeting.com/Windows Weekly. We thank them so much for supporting the Windows Weekly show. All the folks at Citrix are great, great people. You can go up the coast and see them. They're in Santa Barbara there. Any Windows 7 news at all at PDC? I see something that says OEM.
So this
here.
wasn't technically from PDC. I would say, aside from just sort of a recap of what was going on with Windows 7, nothing new at PDC. But right before PDC, in fact, last weekend, I'm doing a series of articles on installing Windows 7 and the various scenarios you can go through there, how the upgrade media works and so forth. And there's a few left that I haven't gotten to. So last weekend I got to one about OEM versions of Windows, which I'll get to in a second. But, next on the list are things like installing Windows 7 in virtual machines, both on the PC and on the Mac. And then also how you handle the student version of Windows 7, which in some cases is delivered in sort of a non-standard format. So how can people get this, set of files that Microsoft provides or its partners provide and get it installed on a PC, perhaps using an optical disk or a USB or whatever. So there's a bunch of things around that. There are two things related to Windows 7 that we should talk about this week. One is the OEM version news, which is that again, Saturday morning last weekend, I get up and I had ordered an OEM version of Windows 7 while I was away. It arrived while I was away on my last trip, and I finally took this thing out of the box and started looking at it. And I said, well, I need to write an article about this. OEM versions of Windows, this is one of those things that people have a lot of questions about. So you know that if you were to walk into a retail store, you can buy Windows 7 in a box. Upgrade versions, there are full versions. There are Windows Anytime upgrade versions, which are not as common at retail, but actually they do exist. In fact, I bought one in Seattle at Fry's. It's the versions that you use to go from like home premium to professional, or from starter to home premium, or whatever. So there's all these different ways to buy Windows. But one of the ways you can save money, technically, is to buy an OEM version of Windows. And the difference between an OEM version of Windows and a retail version of Windows historically was that you don't get any support for this product, because in this case, you're the system builder. You're building a system. Right. And, you are the person who has to support it. So there's no support. You can't call Microsoft. There's no support. That's one of the many reasons that this thing is much less expensive, right, than a retail version. It also doesn't come with the nice packaging. Although you do actually get a little book. You get the same book that the retail package gets. There's a sticker in there, the certificate of authenticity. Right. You're supposed to apply that onto the PC that you're installing this thing to.
I put it on my Mustang.
You can do that, too. That's
okay.
Good. In fact, that's a great idea. Maybe I'll do the same thing.
Well, it has Windows in it. It's got the Microsoft Sync.
Yeah.
Not that version. But,
no, it's a good idea, actually. Now, with Windows Vista, and perhaps before Windows Vista, I can't actually say, but with Windows Vista, the license specified that you had to be a system builder. However, there was actually a clause in the license that said you could be a hobbyist, that you were building a new PC for yourself. Oh, interesting. And if that was the case, you could buy this version of Windows, you could install it on the PC that you built, and then you could use it. It was fine, completely legal. The problem is with Windows 7, they removed that clause. Really? And it actually, now what it says is an individual can buy an OEM version of Windows, but they have to install it on a PC that they sell to someone else. You can't sell it to yourself. You can't give it to yourself. You can't give it away. But as long as you sell it to someone else, and by the way, I suppose technically speaking, that means you could sell it for $1 or whatever,
So I'll build you a PC, you build me a PC.
Yes, we can buy two OEM.
Sell it to each other's for $1.
Yeah, but effectively speaking, what they've really done is they've removed.
They don't want you to do this.
The previous capability for an individual to use this thing.
I was always surprised that they allowed it, to be honest.
Yeah, and it's funny because, I by the way, I made the same mistake. I think I described the OEM versions of Windows a few weeks ago, and I mentioned how, typically, sometimes they'll make you buy like a little piece of hardware, like a USB dongle or something, because that was one of the technical requirements. And that was true of earlier versions of Windows. But actually with Windows Vista, I guess they changed it. And now with Windows 7, they've changed it again. So the way it is right now, as of now, is first of all, you don't have to buy a little piece of hardware. You can just buy the software.
Well, that's good.
But you're contractually, legally.
But you can't use it.
Morally.
Ethically.
Not able to. Now, of course, anyone can buy it. You could go to Newegg right now.
Nobody's checking, is what you're saying.
Nobody's checking, yeah. So anyway,
why does Microsoft do that?
Because I need to. By the way, I have to credit Ed Bott with this one. It's funny. Ed Bott, I know, has done a lot of work with the licensing stuff. He's written a lot of stuff about how poorly Microsoft does communicating its license, how poorly it does documenting its licenses. Right. So as I was writing this article, I thought it was going to be very straightforward. I would look for these clauses in the license. And document them, and it'd be done. And of course, the license is this probably 5,000 word PDF document that is shrunk down to fit the size of the box, right? So it's about twice the size of a deck of playing cards. The font size is like 1 point type, and I'm getting old.
It shows it to you when you install Windows, but of course you've already purchased it.
That doesn't help though. So I want to write the article. So you can go online and you can find the PDF version of this document, which I did. And I'm reading this thing and I'm thinking, this reads like some ancient Jewish script or something like that. There's no one left on earth that speaks this language. What is this? So Ed was online, so I pinged him on Messenger and I said, you got to help me with this thing. What is your understanding of this? And so we kind of went back and forth. He had some information I didn't have. I had the actual product, which answered some questions for him, and it was a big help, so I just wanted to credit him for that. So I wrote up an article about it on Saturday, and then later on he wrote up his own article, which went even further. And the end message, though, is that unfortunately, legally speaking, I guess, you're not actually supposed to be able to do this as an individual. So if you're looking to save money on Windows 7, obviously there's still ways to do that. It depends on who you are. Your students obviously get great deals on Windows 7. The Windows 7 Family Pack is apparently still available in some places, although that may run out. I've been told it might have run out on the Microsoft online store already.
Oh, no.
Remember, this was a limited time offer.
Oh, I better run out and get some.
Yeah. Now, I'm hoping, and I'd asked them to do this, I'm hoping they will extend this at some point and make it permanent. Well, maybe at CES, that will be the big news or something. I don't know.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
Silverlight 4.
Yeah, Silverlight 4, cue the jokes about Microsoft copying someone else. But Silverlight 4 is actually really interesting all of a sudden because, for the uninitiated, Silverlight started out as basically a Flash ripoff, right? A way to stream video on the web. Even in that limited context, there is one really important difference between Flash and Silverlight that doesn't get a lot of publicity. And that is that Silverlight, unlike Flash, streams over HTTP, and that tends to be much less expensive, which is one of the reasons why the big organizations often go with Silverlight, so the Olympics or whatever.
Right.
Or Victoria's Secret.
That's really interesting.
Yeah, so because it goes over
Flash
HTTP,
uses its own port.
Yeah, and they charge more for this, right? Bandwidth providers will charge more for that.
Right, because HTTP they can't because that's just the web protocol.
It's just HTTP.
It's interesting, though. Silverlight's performance to me is better than Flash, and you'd think that one of the reasons they want to use a proprietary port is so that they could use UDP.
Yeah, sure. And by the way, no doubt, Adobe is improving Flash over time. This is something I don't know a lot about.
10.1 came out today.
Not a Flash guy.
A beta of 10.1 came out.
Yeah. But the Silverlight front, we had made some comparisons between Silverlight and Air, I think, in the past, and how they were sort of approaching the problem from a different angle and all that. But if you look at Silverlight today, what they're doing is they basically are bringing this .NET programming model to the web. And now in this new generation, in 3 and 4, they're also opening up the possibility to create Silverlight applications, which run on the desktop and so forth. And the reason this is interesting to me is that one of the big disappointments with Windows Vista, in my mind, is that it didn't fulfill part of this dream, this vision they showed of the future of these beautiful applications that, where text would flow around controls and seamlessly reflow as you resize the windows and would do all these crazy things. And they called this thing Avalon, and then it became Windows Presentation Foundation. And when Windows Vista came to market, a lot of these new platform technologies like Windows Presentation Foundation, Windows Communication Foundation, and so on, were not really heavily used either at Microsoft or by third parties. So here we are, 3-4 years later, and there aren't a lot of these sort of next-gen applications, not really. Like, in fact, what we see instead are Adobe Air applications, right? I mean, the Adobe Air applications are a dime a dozen. They're everywhere. But, WPF applications, not so much. Silverlight, in a way, is WPF again. It provides a web element because you can create these things for the web, but you can also create these local applications. And when you look at some of the Silverlight 4 applications that they show off,
they're great
this year at PDC. They're beautiful.
Yeah.
And it reminds me of that PDC from now 6 years ago, where they first showed off the Avalon stuff. And I think, this could be interesting. So, I'll look into Silverlight a little bit more. I've always sort of written it off. It seemed, like I said, sort of a Flash ripoff in the beginning. But it's clearly much more than that because it's become an entire development platform.
Well, I'm surprised to hear you say that because, to be honest, and I live and die by Flash. This show is on Flash on the stream. And
sure, everything's in Flash.
Everything's in Flash. But I've been much happier with the performance of Silverlight. Hulu's in Silverlight, right? Or is Hulu Flash? Hulu's Flash.
I'm not really sure.
Who is Silverlight?
Flash shows up in such interesting places.
Flash is everywhere.
Yeah, so when Microsoft brought Internet TV to the Windows Media Center in Windows 7, it's not in Silverlight, it's in Flash.
You're kidding.
No. So, I think there's a compatibility issue there. In other words, the content providers.
Netflix is Silverlight, and that's
yes.
That's why it looks.
By the way, that's a beautiful application.
It works better than
That's
Flash.
One of those things that's funny. In very rare instances, do you ever see anything other than extremely high quality video on streaming Netflix, right?
No, it's great.
Yeah, and it always works really well. And it always looks really well. And it seems like, unless you're on like a dial-up modem, essentially, right, you're going to get a pretty decent stream.
That's why I'm thinking I would like to see Silverlight be more.
Yeah, this is something, again, not completely dismissive of, but I've been very ambivalent about Silverlight all along. And looking at this stuff today, talking to people today about Silverlight, I'm thinking, well, you never know. So
this is it. You never know.
Well, it's Microsoft, right? I mean, Microsoft. Listen, we're at a crossroads here. I mean, Microsoft is going in one of two directions. They're either going to be the next IBM,
right?
What's that?
Up or down?
Well, up or down from an interest standpoint. I think that Microsoft will always be a company that makes a lot of money, that prints money.
Right. They'll be like IBM. You're right. They could be like IBM in a sense. Yeah. They're kind of stasis.
Or if some of this stuff that they have around the Xbox and the Zune, media streaming and Silverlight and IE9 and what, if this stuff can generate enough interest, they have the opportunity to continue doing what they've been doing all along instead, which would be a much better future in my opinion. Certainly from my standpoint, that's more of the type of thing that I want to investigate and write about and all that kind of stuff. So we'll see what happens.
And did they show Office 2010 more of the?
Yeah, so. There's a public beta available now of Office 2010, and this encompasses, everything Office related you can think of. There is the traditional productivity suite, which comes in 32-bit and 64-bit versions now. SharePoint server on the server. There's a beta version of Office Mobile 2010 for Windows mobile devices, which got some interesting jokes in the newsroom. You hear a lot of this. Very easy, there's an app for that type jokes, right? I'm sure in your own life.
Oh, yeah. Constantly.
These things come up. So
there's an app for that. It's like,
one of the jokes.
It's like, that's what she said. It's become the that's what she said.
Exactly. So the joke I came up with today was something along the lines of, there are only 17 apps in the Windows Mobile App Store, but you know what? One of them is Microsoft Word. So
there you go.
You can use your fart apps all you want, but we have Microsoft Word.
You got Word.
Right. So they've got that going for them. Office 2010 is obviously a major release. I talked earlier about the new Microsoft scheduling. Again, one beta release, right? Probably a release candidate, and then they're done. So the final version will be in the first half of 2010 at some point. But they've just kind of opened the kimono on it today, and there's a lot going on there. So a major new version of Outlook. They get the ribbon across all the different applications, different capabilities that kind of go across the apps. I would say things like Microsoft Word. More evolutionary than revolutionary. It's a word processor, right? Where are you going to go from there? Nicer fonts, better picture controls, and so forth.
Exactly.
PowerPoint's got some nice stuff in there. Excel 64-bit. Suddenly you can work with, multiple gigabytes of data, right? That's kind of interesting. So there's a lot there. I've got some parts of my review are up now. There'll be more parts coming in the future, and you can download the bits online. So, yeah, there's a lot there.
Somebody is saying in the chat room, you guys never said what PDC stands for.
Oh, right.
I guess we should.
If you don't know, I don't think you should be listening to this podcast. I'm sorry.
Maybe you should go be playing Modern Warfare 1.
So it stands for Professional Developers Conference. As if there were unprofessional developers that would ever go to a conference.
No amateurs allowed.
Yeah.
And that means you, Bryant.
Well, I think these guys must pay, I want to say $1,000 each to be here.
And
you would have to be a professional developer, I guess, just to pay for it.
Although it sounds like a great event, I have to say. I like the techier events.
Okay, so it depends on where you're heading at. Yeah, where your head's at. So
WinHack.
So we do a live blog, and of course, they're talking about all this kind of Windows Azure stuff and consumption model pricing and scalable geo something, and you kind of like nodding off, and it's hard not to get as you kind of joking around with the guys you're with, and it's hard to stay focused on that stuff because it's it's dense. That's the only way I can really put it. That's day one. But, day two, of course, like I said, today was client stuff, Office, Windows, Silverlight, Internet Explorer, and so forth. More interesting, I think, to the general tech crowd. More interesting, certainly, to me. But, this is a developer show. The sessions are unbelievable. If you were just to walk in on one of these things off the street, you would have thought you landed on Mars. It's crazy.
Any conversation at all about that? It was on Slashdot, the accusation that Microsoft, that somebody found open source code in Microsoft's code. I think developers might have something to say about that.
I have the inside story on that one.
Oh, you do? Oh, good. All right.
Because the guy who found that code was Raphael.
Oh, I didn't know that. Oh,
Yes.
That's great. Good for you,
And the
Raphael.
reason he found it, I told you that a week ago on Saturday, I pinged Ed. 2 weeks ago, or three, I guess it was 3 weeks ago on a Saturday. I was working on one of my articles for like I said, I'm writing a series of articles on installing and upgrading Windows 7. Microsoft provided a tool, which we recommended on the podcast, for taking a downloadable ISO image and burning it to DVD, or writing it to a USB key so you could install it on a netbook.
Right.
It's a neat little tool. But what I found out was that for some reason it wasn't working with certain ISOs. So if I downloaded an ISO from the Microsoft Store, that one would work. But if I burned an ISO of a Microsoft setup DVD, a Windows 7 setup DVD that I bought at a retail store, using image burn,
Right.
that
It wouldn't
wouldn't
work.
work.
Right. We
Now-
talked about that.
So I have licensing issues, I go to Ed, but when I have technical issues, I go to Raphael. So that Saturday, I pinged
There's
Raphael.
a team
and I
for
said-
that.
Right. I have a team for this. So I said, I have friends for this. So I said, hey, I told him the story I just told you. And he said, yeah, let me look at this thing. And he looked at it. He said, yeah. He goes, it's weird. These Microsoft ISOs have this weird kind of, it's not a header. It's on the end of the file. But it was, and I don't actually understand the technology. But he, using a tool where you can look at the into the code of the product. He said, yeah, they write an extra bit of padding to the end of this thing for some reason. I don't know why they do that, but he said, I can write a tool that will fix that. So he wrote a tool, put it up on his website. And what it does is it forces this Microsoft tool to work with any ISO. And, it works with Vista ISOs. It works with, you can burn anything with it. So it's a useful little utility. And when I wrote my article about this that included information about this tool, Raphael's tool wasn't ready. And I figured I'd add information about it later. But I also figured if anyone wrote me and said, hey, for some reason this thing isn't working with my ISO, I could be like, oh, Raphael wrote a tool. Don't worry about it. But, Raphael being Raphael, he decided to look into this thing. And he was kind of going through the tool, the source, not the source code, but the disassembled code of the tool. And he gets to the part of it where it, burns the DVD. And it was way too much code. In his mind, in his words, I think he called it, way below the quality of a typical Microsoft product. It didn't make sense, And he started comparing it to, he was wondering why it had to be so big. It's a very simple thing to do, So he didn't understand why this was so poorly done. And I don't know what made him do this, but he compared it to an open source DVD burning tool and found that the source code was identical. So that's interesting, I said, well, we should probably ask Microsoft about that. Raphael contacted the author of the open source tool because it's licensed under the GPL, and there's certain legal requirements when you do that. You have to provide any changes you make back in source code form, for example. Right. And you have to acknowledge that you got the code from where you got it from. Microsoft did neither one of these things. So he contacted the author of the code, who told him he had never heard from Microsoft. And the next week, you remember, I went to Seattle, and I talked to the guys on the Windows 7 setup team. And there were a lot of things that came out of that meeting, including our podcast, where we kind of, when Ed Bott came on, and we kind of straightened out, here's the deal. Right. Here's the real information. But one of the things I asked them at that meeting was, I asked them about this tool, and I told them, I said, Raphael had looked into it and found that it has open source code in it. Do you know anything about that? And what I was told was that it was done by a contractor, but it was, we give it away on the Microsoft Store, so it's Microsoft's problem. But they had never heard of anything like that, and whatever. And I said, well, he's gonna blog about it, so just be ready. And then he did, and he wrote a story where he said, Microsoft appears to have lifted source code from the open source community, and without any credit. And of course, I would take that a step further. I mean, to me, this is just simple theft. I mean, it's like they took it. Whoever did the tool,
right?
So Microsoft was forced, to look into it, and and they found very quickly that Raphael was right. This code had been stolen from this open source project, so they admitted to it.
Probably, what you think was some rogue developer in Microsoft?
Well, it was a third-party contractor, and they said, "Look, we didn't do this internally, but it doesn't matter. We still have processes in place. We should have found this. It was our fault. We didn't do it. We'll fix it." And they're going to release now the source code for the tool.
Oh, that's great. That's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
That's the way to handle it.
The funny thing is, there's been some odd criticism of Raphael since this, because some people feel that he should have gone through the proper channels and alerted the open source.
Look, if you're a journalist, you have no obligation to.
Well, he's a blogger. I wouldn't get let's not get too crazy.
Even a
about
journalist
ethics,
doesn't.
But more importantly, if Raphael had gone through the so-called proper channels, we would never be talking about this, because Microsoft never would have done a thing. They never, the open source community is suing Microsoft for 1,100 things right now, and this is at the bottom of the list.
One more, right?
It would never happen. It would just never. It never would have been resolved.
But I'm glad they did the right thing. I think that's great.
Yeah. No, I mean, one of the things I kind of pushed along was that they never credited Raphael. They made this blog post, and they linked to like a PC Magazine story about this, and they said, you may have heard about reports that did this. And I called him up.
That
and wrote
was
him.
kind of intentional.
I said, guys, you're snubbing Raphael. This is not cool. You got to fix that. And they did provide a link to his stuff. So
that was a little bit of, we're not going to give you credit. We'll give a mainstream source credit. Yeah. Hey, before we get to, despite the fact that you are dying, you're going through withdrawal.
I know.
Your body is all caved in because there's no MW2 anywhere near you.
Let me tell you what next weekend's going to be like.
I don't even have to ask.
Yes.
Let's just put it this way. There'll be no shaving involved. Yeah.
Yes. Exactly.
So despite that, you have still come up with a tip of the week and a software pick of the week. You are the man.
I do not, however, have an audible pick.
That's okay. I'll take it.
But I would like to explain that because
you're still listening to your current book.
Yes. Now I'm not even done with the Ken Aletta book, the Google book, which is fantastic.
Googled.
But next on the list is the Stephen King book. So I'm thinking my next audible pick might be sometime next July or something, because this thing is 1,000 pages long in print form. I don't know how I'm going to do this. I'm going to have to take a week off just to listen to the book.
It's huge, under the dome.
If you were just to speak for 1,100 pages worth, or 1,000 pages worth, I mean, how long would you have to talk?
Oh, hours. It's 25. What is it? It's like
hours, 50 hours? I don't know.
It's almost 40 hours, that book. It goes on and on.
So I hate not having a pick for that right this week.
I have some good picks, but you know what? Kiki is here. Dr. Kirsten Sanford.
You have a good Windows related.
You can say anything. No, I don't have a Windows
Mine is
book.
more in like the Thanksgiving holiday season theme.
It's almost that time.
Yeah, 1491 by Charles C. Mann.
I have read that book.
Yeah, I'm listening to it right now. I got it. The Twist Book Club is reading 1491 by Charles C. Mann right now, and so I got it as an Audible book, and I'm really enjoying
it's what the Indian world was like before 1492.
Yeah, the Americas. It's the story of the Americas and the Indian populations. It's a scientific history. So
I loved it.
It's
I thought it was fascinating.
It has so fascinating.
Now,
I love
here's
it.
the thing.
What?
That's an excellent choice, and I'm glad you said that, because I have to tell you, as you started to talk about Thanksgiving, and my heart kind of stopped, and I thought you were going to recommend a book about like how to cook turkeys the proper way, or what you know what I mean. I had this
she's a
weird
vegetarian.
moment, like,
she's a bird scientist. She doesn't eat chickens or turkeys.
It would be on how to prepare your tofurkey.
Yeah, something. We've certainly gone the esoteric route with some of the choices here, but thank you for.
No, this is a good one.
You're welcome.
Actually, thank you, Kiki. Charles C. Mann. I read it and really enjoyed it. It's the premise of it is what it was like in the Americas before the arrival of the Europeans.
Yeah, I mean, it does have a lot to do also with the Europeans, the Pilgrims, and the
plague,
the deaths of millions of individuals as a result. But it's a fascinating story, talking about going over the landscapes of South America, discovering how some parts of the environment that look to be natural are actually were built by older, previous Indian populations.
Kind of amazing.
Yeah, just amazing discoveries that have been made by scientists to unearth the lives of the Aztecs, the Incans, the Mayans, so many different populations.
They say anything about 2012? Anything in there about that?
No.
Quetzalcoatl.
No.
Eating the. It says in here, one of the things that he talks about is that the Great Plains are 1/3 the size they were in 1700s. The Indians are actually maintaining the Great Plains by burning.
Yes.
When they died off, the plains shrunk.
Yes.
They talk about modern corn, Indian corn, being one of the most complex feats of complex feats of genetic engineering ever performed. Mm-hmm. So this is fascinating.
It's great.
Good book. I really liked it.
Thanksgiving's right around the corner. Yeah. It fits right in.
Well,
why don't you find out what actually happened as opposed to what teachers are teaching
I got another
in
one.
School right now?
I got another one that would be good for Thanksgiving called Mayflower. Have you read that? This is
we may have that might have been.
I think we recommended that. Yeah,
that sounds familiar.
Yeah, this is kind of the true story of Thanksgiving and of the Mayflower and what really happened. This is a great book, also.
You know what else would be good for Thanksgiving?
What?
Modern Warfare 2. You know what I'm saying?
I know what you're saying.
What are you going to do while you're waiting for dinner? Playing
Modern Warfare 2.
What are you going to be doing when you're done with dinner?
Playing Modern Warfare 2. What are you doing while you're eating dinner? Playing Modern Warfare.
What are you going to be doing while your family
hey, Mark,
is
remember that
shopping
time
on Black
in Modern
Friday?
Warfare 2 when you're shooting me? And
you'll have a lot of nostalgic stories about the good old days in Modern Warfare 2. Yeah. Anyway, get your Audible book. If you are, in fact, driving over the river and through the woods to grandmother's house, if you are flying, if you are working out, anytime you can't hold a book, audiobooks are great, and there's only one place to get them, audible.com. In fact, you can get your first book free. This could be this great book on $14.91 or any of their 65,000 titles by going to audible.com/windows. You sign up for the gold account. That's a book a month. Your first one's free. You can cancel at any time, and the book is yours to keep.
I think I just solved my own problem.
What's that?
I'm looking for a way that I can listen to a 1,000-page book, but I don't really have time to do that. And obviously the time to do it would be while I am playing Modern Warfare 2.
Exactly.
That is something that I will be doing for an extensive amount of time. Next week I will probably have a new pick.
Yeah, just listen while you're playing. Get two things done at once.
Yeah, and up the speed of it, so you can do this. You can shift the speed so you can listen to it.
This is good for your brain. This is fight off Alzheimer's. Sure. Audible.com/windows. We thank them so much for their support. They're a really great group of people and a great product. And if you haven't yet listened to an audiobook from Audible, do yourself a favor. Audible.com/windows. All right, Mr. Thurrott. Just a little bit more, and then we'll let you get back to dreaming of Modern Warfare 2.
I'll just play zombies.
Play zombies on your iPhone.
It's not the same.
Tip of the week, number one.
Yeah, I have two tips. The first one's it's a little lame, but it came from Microsoft. Years and years ago, they used to send me these tip sheets. Top 10 ways to take advantage of, front page 2003 or whatever.
Right.
But they sent one list of top 7 things to do with Windows 7 once you get it out of the box. So you get like a new PC or maybe you buy Windows 7 and install it. And just a list of 7 ways or 7, sort of new things in Windows 7 you can discover. And it's all stuff we've talked about before, but it involves such things as, personalizing your computer with, themes and whatnot.
Special Windows napkins?
Yeah. Yes. Which you were contractually obligated to give away at your party, by the way. So we should mention that.
You mean I did? I was supposed to give them to people?
Well, to clean that awful Mac taste out of their mouths.
Oh, I should have stuffed it in their little Mac-loving gobs. That's what I should have done. Yes.
Yeah. So anyway, this is up on my blog. You can read it yourself. But it just talks about things like AeroSnap and Windows Live Movie Maker, Windows Live Photo Gallery.
So this is really 7 tips in one.
It is literally, let's not get too excited, but 7. 7 tips,
7, count them, 7 tips for Windows 7. So are any of them any good?
Yeah, well, like I said, they're all
obvious.
Yes, they're all good, but they're a little obvious. And
but somebody like me who really is kind of a newbie and new to the whole thing,
sure,
might find this valuable. I might get something out of it.
That's like, I don't know. That's a little insulting. I think you're smarter than that.
Shake away the clutter.
If you're not familiar, perhaps
snap to it.
Yeah.
Well, I like this. Make a movie in less than 5 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
That's good. All right, that's tip number 1, but that's not all.
No, there's more. Microsoft is giving away a free ebook. It's a server book. I won't spend too much time on it. But
what's a server book?
So Windows Server 2008 R2 is now out. This is sort of the server version of Windows 7. So the Microsoft Press Book introducing Windows Server 2008 R2 by Charlie Russell and Craig Zacher.
Oh, I thought it was going to be like a net book. It's a book.
It's a book.
Oh, okay.
Ebook. It's in PDF format, so you can download. They're also having, by the way, a kind of a fun contest if you're into haiku. Microsoft is having Windows Server Haiku contest, and the winner of this is actually going to get a 52-inch TV, so you could enter that. So as a typical example of a Windows Server 2008 R2 haiku, we have such things as structure and support, the power to simplify, love Windows Server.
Oh, dear.
Huh?
Oh, dear.
Yes.
Maybe that'd be better if you read it like David Carradine. Hyper-V.
Yeah,
PowerShell. IT just got easier.
Yes.
More time for gaming, Grasshopper. That ruined the cadence, though, because Grasshopper doesn't fit in the haiku format.
So I'm not a haiku guy, but there you go.
Well, it's funny that Microsoft would have a Windows Server 2008 R2 Compose a Haiku website. Just go to r2haiku.com.
Really? Because I'm not surprised by that at all. I think you should read it like Christopher Walken.
Oh, I wish I could. We're going to have to get Jason Calacanis into that one. Oh, look at that. Compose a haiku and win. You could win a home entertainment system. That's pretty good. The new server glows like high-performance Windows. Oh, help manage what shows. No. I don't think so. Maybe you could get the taste of that out of my mouth with a fantastic software pick of the week.
Yes, I will.
Oh, please, Paul. Please, I beg of you.
So the software pick this week is the Office 2010 public beta.
I was wondering why you didn't tell us where to get that.
Yes, so if you go to office.com/beta, that will get you there. You can choose between the 32-bit and 64-bit versions. You can also, if you have a Windows Mobile phone, 6.0 or higher, visit the, Windows Marketplace for Mobile store.
Can you get a free copy of Word?
Yeah, free copy of the whole suite. Well, it's 4 applications. I think it's, 4 applications. So it's Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and OneNote.
Now I know why they don't use Silverlight. Sorry, an unexpected error.
Leo, I didn't say to click on the video. I said to download the software.
I'm trying.
Anyway, I've been using Office 2010 full time since the technical preview, which came out over the summer, and I've had access to the beta version, since sometime in October. I don't remember, but it's very high quality. I believe it can actually run side by side with a previous version of Office, so I should warn people if they're not familiar with the sort of thing that if you rely on Microsoft Outlook, you cannot have 2 versions of Outlook installed at the same time. Neither one will work. So if you're going to be using, if you think you're going to be using Outlook 2010, you should uninstall Office, whatever you have. Uninstall Outlook, whatever. Before that, or if you want to keep using your current version of Outlook, when you install Office 2010, just be sure to uncheck Outlook so you don't get the new.
You don't want to overwrite that. Yeah.
Well, they don't. It's funny, they don't actually overwrite each other, but what they will do is sit side by side on your hard drive, and neither one will work.
Okay,
so it's
almost as good.
Kind of it's a win-win. So
I've got 2 copies of Outlook. Neither of which work.
Yeah, exactly. So just be careful.
Be careful. Be careful out there.
Built-in functionality.
Yeah.
Yep.
Paul, I appreciate it. I know it's you're probably exhausted. It's been a long day at PDC, and you've got more to do. When do you get to come home? Tomorrow or next day? Or?
Yep, tomorrow.
Okay. All right.
I'll be traveling all day tomorrow. So
safe travels home.
Thank you, sir.
And good luck in the firefight that is MW2.
I'm ready to fight.
He came. He saw. He kicked their asses.
Yeah,
Paul Thurrott, Mr. Windows Weekly. You can find him at his website, Supersite for Windows. That's winsupersite.com. And that's where a lot of the things we just talked about are full articles and more information. Of course, he's also the news editor for Windows IT Pro and his new book, Windows 7 Secrets. Order from Amazon.com and save. Just go to the Supersite for Windows. That's the best way to get it. And,
dun, 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 dun.
Paul, thanks a lot. Have a great evening. We'll see you next time on Windows Weekly.